Vishnu is one of the four primal gods who created the current universe in Kubara. He has the right to manage the names of Astika and Nastika. Vishnu himself, as well as the other primal gods, possess superior names, which are free from the cause and effect of the universe. Basically, that means that even if the universe gets destroyed, Vishnu and the other primal gods are going to survive that destruction. Even amongst the primal gods, Vishnu is the only one who remembers the results of the previous universes. Vishnu possesses the greatest insight in all of the universe. He can even read primal gods. The strongest insight is also the reason that Vishnu is the only god who can foresee every choice and its consequences. He can freely manipulate the events of the past to impact the future the universe will achieve, and he can go after his ideal outcome for the universe. Vishnu is the god possessing the resurrection attribute, meaning he can see the transactional skills even of those from fifth Zen gods. We even saw Vishnu seal one of Chandra's skill because he thought that was going to be troublesome in the future. The way this works is basically the same as Bhavati Ashwin's, but obviously Vishnu's skill is a lot more stronger than that spell. Everything is only another possibility. What you gain and what you lose depends on the decisions that you make. Vishnu, as a primal god, can see the consequences of each decision a human, Sura, or a fifth Zen god or rebel makes, and hence he is free to see what the outcome of those decisions is going to be. This is where the character of Vishnu gets complicated. People assume that he is a manipulative and controlling guy, so ultimately he is bad. But due to him seeing people and their choices as a means to end to achieve his own ideals, but the ideals that he wants to achieve are the best possible outcomes for this current universes, because he remembers that the previous universes didn't achieve their ultimate potential, and perhaps they had to be destroyed, and they restarted this current universes to fix the mistakes from the previous universes. So I will reiterate it once again. Everything is only another possibility. What you gain and what you lose depends on the decisions that you make. He alone remembers the outcomes from the previous universes. He carries the heavy burden of knowing and the insight that it provides. So let's work this scenario out. The scenario that's in front of us right now. So let's assume that Vishnu doesn't intervene at all and the universe gets destroyed. And everyone says that, yeah, Vishnu knew, but he didn't do anything, so he's a bad guy. Another alternative here would be Vishnu intervenes and takes the possibilities of the universes with himself, and he starts to control the events and how they unfold. And then everyone goes back to the point of him being manipulative and controlling, and ultimately he's the bad guy again. So you see how these storylines are all layered out right in front of us and playing off of each other. Moving on, another conversation that intrigues me a lot about Vishnu is how he explains the name of power. Being born with power means great achievement, he says, but also great loss. There is no such thing as a perfect name. Vishnu realizes his role in this story, and he isn't afraid to play it. He says that exact quote to Gandharva when Gandharva says he doesn't want the name of the king, and he just wants to spend time with Vinaka and be with Vinaka. Vishnu explains to Gandharva that a perfect name doesn't exist, and if Gandharva wasn't Gandharva, then Vinaka would be with someone else who had the name of Gandharva. He goes on to tell Gandharva that this name is going to bring him terrible suffering, but it will also bring him wondrous love and beautiful friendships. We can emphasize this exact point where a perfect name doesn't exist, because even the Shura kings who are given the ultimate power and ultimate life, even they have to pay a price to get it. We can see this panel from Yaksha over here, and he basically uses the analogy of his life being being a lap of a race that is being run, but the starting point of the lap is just the lap of the previous life, and he doesn't know how to win the race that he's a part of, or even how to participate in it. And most of his life has just gone on figuring out what he is supposed to do. That's basically the price for the power and the long eternal life that they are given. So, moving on from that, Vishnu was basically the most famous god for the humans before he disappeared in N0. Vishnu was living on Velar with Kalavenka after the Garuda siblings had to be separated, and Vishnu was given Kalavenka to take care of. However, since the disappearance of Vishnu, the magic, Hoti Vishnu, also disappears. Asha is currently the only magician who can use this spell. But even on Asha, it incurs a heavy toll, as we see Saha on speculate that Asha basically didn't exist during the years N12 and N15, perhaps because she used Hoti Vishnu a lot of time, and that basically caused it to disappear from the universe for a certain period of time. Moving on, the reason why Asha can still use the magic Hoti Vishnu is probably because Vishnu chose her as his piece in the story. So perhaps he shared his power with Asha, and while he showed her the potential futures that behold her, from which he showed her one specific path that would outline a 90% chance of her winning. What this win is going to bring her is perhaps this is not the only planet that faces disaster. So many universes come to exist, then are destroyed again. From the perspective of one who remembers everything, the calamity of a single planet does not move me at all, Vishnu says. We could stack that he remembers everything, as we forementioned. This also gives more insight into his perspective, like he has to think about the best possible future for the entire universe. There is no part of a universe that is more important than the entirety of this current universe. He also explains this best possible future that is destroyed now, because Manaka thought that Vishnu had given her the name of persuasion, but it turned out that it was Kali who had Manaka in her clutches and her scheming. This basically destroyed the best possible future, and Vishnu had to convince Shiva not to destroy the entire universe at that time. Shiva was pretty annoyed and regretful that their creations were so stupid to be easily tricked by Kali and manipulated. To which Vishnu argued that it is impossible to create creatures as they like, because ultimately they have to go around correcting the errors that are being made by their creation. This correcting of errors can also be seen in the conversation that Vishnu has with Chandra in the Weight of Time arc. When Vishnu tells Chandra that he can see the future, what he had planned for them being Ran and Varuna, who had been traveling back in time and during the Weight of Time arc. Continuing the same arc, we see that Shuri and Chandra meet Ran and Maruna after Garuda tells them to go meet Shuri because she's the most closest to Vishnu, and she perhaps has the answers that they are looking for. There, it is again emphasized, and perhaps this is the panel where I thought that I was ultimately captivated by the character of Vishnu, because the way that Shuri talks about Vishnu here make it seem like that he is the one that's the strongest in the universe and not Ananta. Again, focusing on from this exact panels, we could also deduce that perhaps Yaksha had to die so Ran could get his art. And ultimately, Ran and Maruna were sent back to the past was so that Ran could learn from Yaksha himself and utilize that power in the future to achieve the ideal universe goal that Vishnu has in mind. While Maruna was sent back with Ran so that he could develop into stage 5. Vishnu does all of this manipulation, as he calls them, corrections, in order to achieve the best possible outcome. which means the universes that previously existed didn't achieve those outcomes and ultimately had been destroyed by Shiva, as he was going to destroy this current universe when he found out that the ideal possibility doesn't exist anymore. Another possibility would be that Vishnu never meddled in those universes and he would just let Kali go around and cause chaos as she wished. And now that he has the memories from those universes, he wants to correct those mistakes as well. Bringing this discussion towards Kali, Vishnu also says to Kali, give it to your all, Kali. You think it is justice to stand against us, and by us, obviously, he means primal gods. But to the creators of a dying universe, you're nothing more than evil. We see that he calls Kali evil, basically insinuating that he thinks of himself as good and of Kali as evil. But everything that we've discussed previously in this particular video shows a lot of moral ambiguity. It is clear from a lot of things that Vishnu can be considered as immoral or dubious. The fact that he wants to do these acts of manipulation and controlling for the greater good and the cause of the universe doesn't dissolve the acts itself from being immoral. But perhaps they are necessary, because if he doesn't get involved, the universe is just going to get destroyed like all the others. His actions, as immoral as they sound, they are necessary. And that is why I love the character of Vishnu. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about it. And I would like to know what all of you think about this particular topic.